I decided to make a video for once, and I had to do this stupid shit for work, and now I was like, I have a video. It, this isn't plugged into anything though, so that's kind of cool. That resin's supposed to be gray. Huh. I have an idea. Ow. I've been working construction all week and this hurts. Ah! If your resin ever does look like this, all you have to do is just mix it together. This is just the pigment inside of the resin rising to the surface, I think. I don't know. Honestly, whenever I mix it back together, it always ends up working, so just do it. One of the first big mistakes I made when I first started resin printing was not doing the tank clean before a print. There are little bits of residue that get down to the bottom, and then when that like top part, you know, the thing that the resin prints on, goes down all the way, it can cause holes in your tank, and that's never a good thing. That leads to tank leaks and you get resin everywhere. It's not a fun experience. Look, shit is melting my glove, and I already have open wounds all over the place, and it's all good. Got some extra resin. I'm sure that's enough. Let's see if this works. Ah! So, yeah, my last one didn't work. I'm sure I will do a voiceover as to what happened, blah, 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 blah. Here's the new one. Okay, so story time. With my original print, only one of those 3 models actually worked. And so I started painting it, and I was like, I'll just go with one. It should be fine, whatever. I was going to just go with the one that looked the coolest anyway, so the fact that one worked, it was totally fine. But I decided to use oil paint, and I quickly learned that stuff does not dry, especially on this like resin once it's hardened. So later I ended up getting acrylic paint and it ended up working, but I figured oil paint would be fine, right? Because most model paint's made of oil, or like as an oil base. It wasn't. So yeah, that's pretty much it. It wasn't anything too big. So I ended up having to find a new design. I ended up deciding to go with the dragon rogue thing. I don't know. And it turned out better than I could have ever imagined, so I'm pretty happy with it. Anyway, thank you for listening to my TED Talk. Back to the video. God, that's so cool. So, attempt 2. Here it is. Came out looking very nice. I actually got acrylic paint this time. They didn't have like just a box of a bunch of small colors, so I just got some main ones. I'm gonna make his main like clothing this color. That's the only reason I bought this one. The rest of it I can just mix together. They didn't have black and white, so instead I got poster paint black, and then really dark gray, and then a really light gray. Don't at me, bro. I hate the way that feels. It feels like I'm breaking it. First, alright, chin is taken care of, neck is taken care of. Now just for the most painful part, the fingers, because they're already. I broke one of the fingers. I'm not gonna reprint this, so I reprinted it. All right, take 3. So the painting took up the majority of this project, but it's also like the most boring part to watch. So I'll just share a few of the tidbits I learned during my first 2 miniatures that I tried painting and failed. So let's start with my first big mistake. I used oil paint instead of acrylic paint. Oil paint is actually better than acrylic paint, not gonna lie. It looks so much nicer and the colors stand out a lot more, but holy shit, it takes so long to dry. It is now like 2-3 weeks after I recorded this video, and now it's actually dry, but I was checking for like 3-4 days afterward, and the oil paint on my original model still hadn't dried. So if you're not in a time crunch, oil paint is the way to go. If you are, stick with acrylics. The next issue I ran into was just printing the model too small. I'm not even gonna lie. If you need it this small, you can make it work, but you have to be really, really careful when removing the supports, because like his little teeny tiny fingers, I mean, even if you look at the one I'm working on now, the ring finger, or is it the middle finger? I don't know, broke off. And at this point I just decided, nah, f it, I'm not gonna print another one. I'm already on my like 3rd attempt. I need to get this shit done by tomorrow. So yeah, either just print bigger or be much more careful than I am. Okay, so now for the actual acrylic tips. As you can tell, this is my 2nd time trying with the acrylic. If you look in the background, there's the other dragon, which I actually gave a few attempts with painting, but I ran into a few issues. My first big piece of advice is to keep the layers of paint thin. When it started clumping up, it created this like, I don't know, like gummy sort of congealed paint mix. It looked really ugly. I don't really have any footage of it, sadly, but as you can see with this one, I did multiple layers of thin, consistent coats. I started off with just my base layer, as anybody normally would. This is just some plain color that's going to be underneath. I didn't end up deviating from this too much because I liked those base colors, but of course I'm going to add texturing later, which I'll show and kind of explain what I do. Something else I made sure to do was to paint those like deeper crevices in first, because once the deeper parts are painted, you can then paint over the parts that are like sticking out. So for example, if you look at the knives, they're kind of like overhanging over the back. I would paint the back first, and of course I would get some paint on the knives, but I'm gonna go back over that anyway with a darker color. I mean, and even if it was a lighter color, I just found that it was easier to get those deep crevices first and then paint over them with the part that's actually sticking out. So I pulled a bit of a Minecraft tuber here and finished the base coat all off camera. A lot of it was really fine detail work, and I honestly couldn't keep it in frame while I was like having it right next to my eyeball, so that's my bad. But this is when we're going to start adding texture. So I use the only technique I know how to do, and it's called dry brushing. Basically what you do is you put a tiny bit of paint on your brush, kind of like get it all within the bristles and whatnot. Make sure you keep the amount of paint super, super light, and you cover the whole entire surface area of what you're trying to texture with this color. Normally you're going to use like a darker gray or a black or a lighter gray and a white to bring out details and like bring out those shadows. So one of the biggest ones I did it on was on the face of the dragon and on the tail of the dragon, where I really wanted those scales to pop out versus everything else. I also did a bit of dry brushing to the clothing. I wanted it to look a little bit dirty, because like, I don't know, if you just have a completely plain coat of blue, for example, or green, it's gonna look too refined and not as realistic. Not gonna lie, I might have added a little bit too much on the pants of this, but I really wanted it to look dirty and more realistic. I would say this is arguably the most important step of making a miniature. And lastly, I added the eyes in. You have to add some sort of character to it if you want it to pop out. I think this really wrapped everything together, along, of course, with the texturing, because that's important, blah, 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 blah. But like the eyeballs, I don't know, it gives it a human quality, even though it's a dragon and not alive. So when I was editing this was the only part of the video with no audio, and it felt weird. so I'm saying something now is filler audio. I'm putting the pupils in. You know, the little black dot in the eyeball. Yeah, I'm doing that actively. Goddamn, this is taking a very, very long time. I don't really know what to say. I mean, it's 2 black dots. There's not really much else to it. Hey, look at that, the model's done. Normally you could add like Mod Podge or something over the top of it to make sure that the paint doesn't get damaged, but I didn't have any, so I just gifted it like this. Overall, I'm super happy with how this turned out. Yeah, I honestly surprised myself with this. It's not as hard as you'd expect it to make it look decent. Of course, it's not going to look anything like what professionals do, but I don't know. I was pretty happy with it. I hope you are too. So, I never know how to do these outros. They're just... So a bit's changed in the 2 weeks that I first recorded my intro. I got more ink, so that's kind of cool. What else happened? I found my mask. That's kind of lit. My nails changed colors. This still isn't plugged in anything.